Hey everyone, it's Ivan, KitBadger.com, here to bring you a little how-to. I'm going to show you how to install your Law Tactical folder, this one being the Gen-3, for instructional purposes only. As far as tools go, before we get this party started, need a 5/32 as well as 3/32 Allen wrench. You also need a castle nut wrench, or AR armor's tool usually, sometimes called, for this being the castle nut. You will also need your buffer tube removed from whatever low receiver you're going to use. I'm not going to go into it. If you haven't done it and need to do it, I would suggest doing it carefully. Otherwise, you're going to end up with springs all over the place. The first step we're going to do is we need to go ahead and remove this cover right here. For that, we're going to use this 9/32, and it's going to be under spring tension. So make sure you secure it. Take that out, probably try and not lose it, and then this piece, cover will come off, the spring will come out, and that piece. Probably hang on to those, we will need them in a minute. Next we're going to go ahead and attach this to our low receiver, but before we do that, we have some things that need to go together in a very specific order. So if you took this apart, hopefully you didn't lose some of the parts that go back here, because we have our rear takedown pin. Rear takedown pin slides in from left to right, and we want to make sure it is lined up. And then behind it, from the rear of the low receiver, we're going to put our little detent, and then following that is going to be this spring, which is going to press on that detent and secure our rear takedown pin. So with that, not losing that, we're going to go ahead and take it. The piece we want facing this direction is going to have this little nub right there. So we're going to go ahead, line this up, and carefully depress that spring straight down. Make sure it's secured. And with that, we have this piece, drops in from the rear, and it comes with this tool. We start screwing this down. Might take a little doing getting the threads to catch, but once it catches, easy day. As soon as it gets snug, before you crank this thing down, make sure you did a good job getting that spring captured, so when you push your rear takedown pin, it should not pull all the way out, it's captured, good to go. Now to snug this guy down, this piece, we're going to go ahead and put it in here and turn it till that starts to flex, at which point this is basically our little torque wrench. We know we're good to go right there. With the hinge now attached to our low receiver, we'll move this guy out of the way and we can reassemble this. It goes back together, same way we took it apart. This piece is going to drop in like such. There's a space inside there for our spring, which hopefully we haven't lost. That is going to drop down inside of there. And then we have this cover plate. Again, cover plate's going to be under tension, so when we press it down, we need to hold it and hopefully not lose that. Throw that guy in there and tighten this back down. You don't need to, make sure the thread's grabbed. You don't need to crank this thing down, just get it pretty snug. By the same token, yeah, I would suggest probably not using Loctite or anything like that, but you do you. I'm gonna throw it on there if I want, because I am able, even though they don't have a recommended torque value. Go ahead and imagine 25 inch-pounds, probably be good to go. All right, there we are. To ensure that this hinge section doesn't obviously come off our lower receiver, that would be bad. We already have that piece, we screwed it in there good, but there's a set screw right here, 3/32. There isn't an assigned torque value, it's supposed to be snug, not overly tight. I'm gonna go ahead and use 25 inch-pounds again. There we go. And now we can go ahead and actually install our buffer. So for that, the way you would install your buffer tube regularly, you have a hole here, you're gonna put your spring in there, and then your buffer detent pin, which basically captures your buffer, make sure it doesn't come out. At that point, we get our buffer tube and your castle nut. You wanna screw your castle nut all the way down. The big notches are gonna face the rear of your buffer tube. Then you're gonna take whatever one of these you have. Some are plain. This one by Noveski has a QD socket. And you put that on there. And then we're just going to start threading this guy into this piece of the hinge. Don't cross thread it, or do. Cross thread is a tight thread. As we start screwing this in, eventually it's gonna wanna make contact with our buffer retaining pin. We wanna actually just press it down, depress it with your thumb or whatever. And we're almost there. We wanna bring it, and it'll end up lining itself up vertically, this right here. And once it's there, you can actually release the buffer retaining pin, and it's now secured by your buffer. So then this piece, you're gonna wanna slide forward, make sure, again, there's gonna be a recess portion of this, which essentially fits up with a little nub. And then we're gonna go ahead and tighten this guy up, our castle nut, till we make contact. And then it's time for our castle nut wrench. To secure our castle nut, I'm gonna go ahead and close this, and these teeth line up on our castle nut, and then we crank on this thing. I don't remember what the spec is. I've seen all different things. Honestly, I put it on there and I just crank it. And that's pretty much it. The one other step is you can come around on this piece and you can stake it, which means you essentially use a punch or something like that, deform some of the metal, and there's these little spots around the castle nut where it meets with this piece, and you deform this metal into one of those little notches. What it does is it keeps this from backing out. I would encourage you to do that. I'm not going to, because that's something where you definitely want a punch and ideally a vise to set this thing in. But once you do that, this won't back out. I would encourage you not to use Loctite, just not a best practice. You can now fold this open, depress this button on the side, swings open, and we take our buffer spring and buffer, just like on a regular carbine, slide it into the buffer extension, buffer tube rather, and it's captured with that pin. We can now go ahead and take, in this case, a pistol brace, SBA 3, with the Lunar Concepts split fix. Pull this guy out so it can slide down onto our buffer tube. And now we have that on there. Last thing we need to do is go ahead and get our upper receiver, put the extension on our bolt carrier group, and yeah, we'll be good to go. Next, we're gonna go ahead and attach our upper and lower receiver. Then we're going to push the release button, bring this guy to the side, and we're gonna push the release button one more time. And when we do that, we're gonna go ahead and back our bolt carrier out a little bit. So we can then take the carrier extension, which may or may not have just dropped into the snow, and we're gonna shove this guy in as such. Then slide that back down. It is now captured, and we now have our loft holder installed. Again, press that button, swing it back. Go ahead and function check this thing if you would like. And yeah, we're good to go. And that right there is how you install a Law Tactical folder on AR-15 platform. You can pick these up different places, obviously directly through Law Tactical or other places like Shooting Surplus. Through Shooting Surplus, you can get them usually about, I don't know, about 230 bucks for the black one, this being the flat dark earth. I think right around 245. But as I get more time with it, I will end up bringing you guys a full review and let you know my thoughts. I think just at a glance, it's pretty cool. Definitely allows you to take a rifle and make it a little more compact depending on how and where you're gonna carry it. But we'll see how it does in the long run. And as always, thanks for joining us at kitbadger.com. Look forward to seeing you next time.
Music in my throat, and my fight under my feet.